Good morning, happy Thursday, and welcome to a very special live with a very special human, one of my favorite humans, actually, across the world. Ira, welcome, and please tell everyone a little bit about you and what it is that we'll be talking about today.
Thank you, Catherine. And same here. I've been very much looking forward to our conversations as the last ones were awesome as well.
Wonderful.
So my name is Ira. I come from a company called Emergy. Emergy comes from two words, emotional energy. That's what we work with. So developing, researching, and training emotional agency for people in work life for them to feel better and perform better. In a nutshell, our motto is hard facts won't make your company thrive, but emotions will. What we mean by that is the fact is that, as we know, people come to work, whether it's on live or in to the office with their emotions. So that piece of information is oftentimes missing from leading self and others, and that's what we're trying to teach people how to deal with the negative stuff, but also how to awaken the authentic positive stuff.
Yes, and that is so important. You know, people think a lot about the negative things, the things that are bothering them, the things that are digging in. But then, and yeah, that's important because we need to figure out solutions, right? But that's the way we should be looking at it as a solution. But then also how to bring out the positive side of everything.
Authentic positive.
The authentic positive. Yes, not the fake positive, not the I'm doing so great, but inside
Yeah.
you're like, I've gone insane. Not that. And for anybody who doesn't know, my name is Catherine McCord. I run a people operations consulting company, and I also speak and teach internationally about inclusion and best hiring practices. I specialize, I guess you could say, in neurodiversity and invisible
Mm.
disability inclusion, but I also do a lot of work around religious inclusion as well.
Super
So,
important topics in today's work life. I
yeah,
admire your work.
thank you. And vice versa. So, we actually met at a convention.
We did.
Yes, we did. And your work was so fascinating to me. I met one of your colleagues at a water cooler, literally getting
Yeah.
a drink of water. And she rushed me over to you and said, "You must meet her." And ever since then, we've been in each other's lives. So thank you, HR Tech, for that.
Yeah.
Uh, um, Go to Vegas; you'll meet cool people. So, um, so tell me a little bit. So this we've done a lot of talks around emotional
Yes.
agency, you and I, and this one particularly fascinated me because it ties into a common concept in and the theology, although we're not going to talk about the theology today, in psychology. So
Mm.
can you tell us a little bit about how you are implementing and using the practicality of the Gestalt method?
Yes, happy to. I actually started studying relational organizational gestalt last fall. I got an inspiration of a colleague of mine who had just completed a 4-year degree in Denmark. So after studying this for almost a year, I strongly believe that this is one of the fundamental elements in today's work life to understand the complexity and to work with the complexity that we have. Because if we think of the typical planning, it's quite rigid, right?
Yes.
But even if we had the best plan in place, all of us who have worked with any projects, things happen that are not planned. How to
Right.
deal with that emergent stuff, which oftentimes that's the deal breaker. Can we deal with that? How do we deal with that when the plan says something else, but we realize that the plan doesn't actually work? So to understand the interconnectedness of things instead of trying to eliminate the work life into certain variables as factors because they do not remain as planned. So that's what I find most inspiring and most useful because we talk about agility, we talk about resilience, we talk about a lot of
Right.
stuff, but Gestalt in organizational development actually brings the lens to understand that dilemma, that complexity, and to work with that.
Yes.
because human beings are not rational, as we have been talking many times. The human factor brings an
What?
element that we need to understand how to deal with the emergent, not unplanned stuff.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
in
And
very
it's
simple
true.
terms.
And humans do not like you said, we've talked about this a million times. Humans do not do well under pressure.
Mm,
Typically, we don't. There are a few humans that do. But in general, people do not. We kind of collapse. We get overstimulated.
hmm
And it's funny because people use that term in terms of like toddlers
Yeah.
and things, but it's true. Just as humans, we get overstimulated, we get stressed out, um, and so we have to have healthy ways to get through the unpredictable, right? The things that
Yeah.
just get thrown at you.
And also we can operate quite okay for a short period of time. But when we talk about sustaining in these
Right,
uncertain times, how do we build how do we build competence to thrive even amidst the change?
right.
I think that's the thing. And I find it most useful because it really brings another layer or a dimension to the work that we do with building emotional agency. So,
Yes,
if emotional agency is building the skills for individuals and the whole organization to consider, use, and learn and deploy the emotional intelligence into the daily actions that take place, the Gestalt approach brings another lens to take a look at any interaction, any any encounter that takes place in the work life, to
right,
understand the dynamics that every single encounter consists of three things: myself, the other or the others, and the situation.
right,
Do we take that into account, asking ourselves, so when I'm with you, what am I bringing to this meeting? Do
right,
the little check in. That's my responsibility. What do I
right,
bring in with me? Do I have the capability and availability to be present? Can I tune myself into curiosity? And
right.
then what happens in me with you in this situation? Because the funny fact is, even if it was you and me and the same topic taking place tomorrow, the nine dynamics would be different.
Yes.
So
Oh
that's
gosh,
that's
yes.
in a nutshell what I'm
Oh
talking
yeah.
about.
No, that's so true. And I've found that to be true. And even if you go back and look at different talks that you and I have done, while we always have good chemistry, they're very different.
Yes,
And our energies are different based on different things
absolutely.
happening in our lives, and based on health. You and
Yeah.
somehow, I always end up doing a talk with you right when like my health is awful. And which I think is the universe saying you need this human's good energy, so here you go, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But but it's true. And so you'll see ones where I've been healthy and my energy is
Mm.
one way, and then you
Yeah.
see a couple of our
Yeah.
talks and my energy is very different. And so I think it's interesting because somehow your energy complements mine. I don't think we've
Mm.
ever done a recording where both of us were low. I don't think that's a thing. We either are
Yeah.
both up
Yeah.
or we complement each other.
Yes.
Who's more tired. We had one like that where you were the more, I'm
Yeah.
kind of out of it and I'm kind of
Yeah.
displaced. Um, I think it's really interesting and the way that we interact, and it is so important to be conscious about that, to
Mm.
stop and realize where you are realistically speaking,
Yeah.
and to own that and to communicate that. That's the part that people forget, to communicate
Yeah.
that. So and I think we're afraid of that because there's this expectation of perfection in the
Mm.
workplace. You must always be at a 10 all the time. Scale of 1 to 10. Got to be at a 10 all the time. Well, it's just not realistic. That's just silly.
I know. I Without asking your permission, well, I'm asking it now. Can I bring a topic that took place offline between you and me a couple weeks back?
Yes,
Because
please.
I that has really stuck with me. It rarely happens. We were chatting on one of the messengers, and I asked, "How are you?" And you said, "Pretty well." And then I was there saying, "Well, I need to say I'm pretty well too," although I felt crappy. But
Yeah.
then I realized that I it's irresponsible for me to actually start lying to you, because everything
Mhm.
that we have done, I sense a true connection, authenticity, and trust
Yeah.
between us. So I actually replied, I threw up everything. Like,
You did.
I'm dealing with this right now. And then I asked, so what does your pretty good mean to you
Mean. Yeah.
right here, right now? And
Which
then
was
you
a
started
lovely
explaining,
response. Yeah.
because, and after we shared some crappy stuff of the life at that point,
Yeah.
I felt even more connected. And I
Yes.
sensed like, oh, I'm not alone. A sigh of
Yeah.
relief. So exactly back to your point, we're so keeping it uptight and trying to keep it calm, although part of what we're trying to bring to the workplace is both of us is
Yes.
authenticity with
Yes.
responsibility. And I think
Yes.
that's one of the, in
I love
this
that you said with
time,
responsibility. Hold on, I want to hit on that real quick. You said
yeah,
with responsibility. Yes, be authentically you, but be responsible about it. So what does that mean?
I'm meaning that it is, if, well, everyone has a crappy day at times. So, you know, we can mask behind, well, I'm just having a crappy day and I'm spreading it around. I'm being authentic, but that's not a responsible way. I could,
No.
in a responsible way, I should tell you, Catherine, today's I'm not at my best. I just want to let you know so that you're not, you don't have to make guesses or assumptions of why am I, maybe as energetic or myself as
Right.
you know me.
Right.
So the dialogue, the constant dialogue of making sure that the people that we work with have those have enough information to deal with us. I think that's it.
Yeah.
That's the responsibility
Like that.
part.
You have enough information to deal with me today.
Yeah.
But you know what though? It's true. Like how can I communicate to people? And you don't need to get super personal at work. I want to be
Yeah.
clear with that. So I have a client who, and I've talked about this on the show. In fact, I've had them on my normal show, Career Launch Live. Um, and they do a red light system or the
Yeah.
traffic light system. So
Yeah.
anything from green to yellow to red. And if you're not in the United States, red is where you stop and green is where you go. So, and then everything in the middle. And so they go around the beginning of each meeting and they
Yeah.
say what color they are, and it indicates kind of where they're at. And if somebody is yellow, then you offer them some
Mm.
different, help, or what can we do? Do you need help? You kind of ask. If it's red, number one, they don't make any decisions that day. That any decision making responsibility that person has
Mm.
gets postponed until, because that person is not in a good place to make a
Yeah.
decision. And the whole team asks to help. And you don't have to clarify why. That's okay. That's not necessarily everybody's
Yeah.
business, but they still communicate, I'm at a red. And then people step in and help. And
Yeah.
it's a beautiful symbiotic system in which everybody can kind of help. And everybody, and I had somebody ask me recently in a class, I used that example, and they said, well, what happens when the person just takes advantage of being red and just uses that to be lazy so that
Mm.
everybody will help them? And I said, I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
And so I said, I'm sure it happens. I'm sure there's that
Yeah.
person, but then that's up to management to deal with them.
Yeah.
But in general, it works beautifully because it's a more honest way to communicate. It prevents things happening that would otherwise be detrimental, like decisions being made when they shouldn't, miscommunications. Because if you know somebody's having a real bad day and maybe they're a
Yeah.
little sharp with you, then you're not wondering, oh my God, like, is my working relationship with them broken? You can
Exactly.
just
Or
be
get all
honest.
defensive and make
Yes.
those assumptions, tell
Yes.
yourself the story which might not have anything to do with
Right.
reality, and we start believing that. You're
Yes.
talking about a very important topic, building inclusion safety. I know
Ooh,
you're
okay.
you're an expert in that, but just what you described is one of the key elements of building trust and psychological safety,
Yes.
for everyone to feel that it's okay to be me at work
Yeah.
in a
And it's
responsible
okay
way.
to dissent. Yeah, and a responsible way. Don't just let it go. Trust me, I have days where I just want to scream and punch everything
Mm.
within my vicinity. I don't do
Yeah.
that because that would be irresponsible
Mm.
for so many reasons, not to mention extremely rude. So I just don't do that. I just don't. But you do need to be able to tell people this is a bad day. Like
Mhm.
before we even got started with the show, I said to you,
Yeah.
I said,
Yeah.
I don't feel good. This is a bad
Yeah.
health day.
Yeah.
It's not okay. This is just not good today. Um, and so you need to be able to have, and back to that those messages that we had. And I was not dishonest with my initial response, but I wasn't thorough in my initial response.
Yeah.
And when you have a relationship in which you're creating together, as we do, and in which you are working on projects together, as you and I do, then you need to have that level of intimacy where you can be honest with each other. And intimacy is not a word that people want to use in the workplace,
Mm.
right? But I think and again, you don't have to go into great detail to establish this. I think that it's important to have intimacy between people that have an ongoing symbiotic relationship of any kind together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Working with different people and different companies in different industries for the past 5 years, especially during the last 3 years, I think this is one of the fundamental success factors, really, deal breakers, really. Do people feel that that my manager or supervisor is showing interest in me or my colleagues?
Yeah.
Do they try to understand my situation and take me seriously?
Right.
That's People have an innate need to feel that they belong,
Yeah.
and that we all know what has happened in the past couple years, and then we're thinking, so how do we solve this? We make these rules, or because it's very, very back to the basics. Let's
Yes.
treat each other with respect and show that we care. That's how
Yes.
we build the glue, commitment, the engagement, the intimacy. People want to
Yes.
relate to person.
Yes. Now, I teach a class
Hmm.
called Dealing with the Office Jerk. And it's something that I deal with a lot. And one of the concepts that I talk about in that class is that being the jerk, being the bully, is a sustaining social structure. These are people that build this social structure. And right
Mm.
now, it's very trendy to be rude. I don't understand.
Oh
I
my!
don't like it, but it's definitely a thing. Um, and I
I bet
want
their
to talk about
numbers are good, right?
yeah, you get a lot of
Typically,
that. Yeah, their
yeah,
numbers are good. They're individual, yeah, but they're breaking down the team and
yeah.
causing issues. And what's funny is I've had leadership make that argument to me. I say, but how much better would they be if they weren't spending their time being a jerk?
Mm.
And they kind of stop and they're like, oh, like, yeah. In other words, they could be doing more if they weren't taking their time out to be a jerk. So I want to talk about this too, because right now there are so many, especially in the United States, I think, so many polarizing things happening
Yeah.
in politics, lawmaking, all this. And I don't want to get into any of that. That's not what
Hmm.
we're about here, but it's true. And so people are having struggles that are caused by things outside of work,
Mm.
but it makes them fearful of people
Mm.
in work who have
Mm.
expressed certain opinions, which, first of all, keep your politics out of work, for the love of God. That is not the place.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we need to acknowledge the pain that people are going through, sometimes on both sides, because
Mm.
sometimes people, even the people who are getting their way, it's painful for them because so many people are telling them that they're wrong. They're very stressed out about the whole thing. So there's a lot of pain there. So
Mm.
I wanted to ask you very specifically, because I get asked this a lot. As leaders, people in business, and just as individuals, how do we handle the pain that we are feeling from things that are very real in our lives, that are affecting us, that are not things that we can control? How do we deal with that and being responsibly authentic
Mm,
while still not creating turmoil in
mm,
the workplace?
mm. A very good question. And by the way, I I realized that in many places the polarization is existing. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And the same phenomena, I have also been asked the same question many times during the past couple weeks. How do we, for example, how can we help people deal with the fear caused
Yeah.
by life outside of work
Right.
impacting the life at work? Because
Right.
that's how it goes. We cannot separate.
Yeah.
Although sometimes one of the good questions is, do you draw boundaries? Do you realize? I just had a discussion about this. Do you realize how much your outside of work is impacting? What are you bringing with you
Right.
to this context? Could you draw a line? Could you make a conscious decision and be aware? Because that's one thing. Oftentimes, we're not aware.
Right.
It's just a whole bunch of messy stuff and we feel out of control. So that's one thing. Draw the line. The second thing is to allow people to share their true experience, to talk about the experience, to name the emotions, help them name the confusing,
Right.
fuzzy, unpleasant feeling or experience that they are going through. Typically, when we can, there's this nice saying, when you name it, you tame it. Partially that's
That's
step
true.
number one. When you
Hmm.
can name it, it's more tangible, it's more
Yes.
controllable, manageable.
Yes.
So allow the space to share. Because one of the things that people are oftentimes afraid of as leaders or facilitators, team leaders, etc., is when we allow people to express their true emotions, a Pandora's box is going to open. No, sharing is not the same as complaining. Sharing is
Right.
part of the healing. It doesn't
Right.
have to take a lot of time, by the way.
No.
I, I mean, we've introduced techniques to have in 15 minutes, but with that 15 minutes, true experiences expressed, we will actually get more energy and focus on the stuff that we need to be focusing
Right.
on. Because if
Right.
we don't allow that to be
It's
expressed,
just festering.
all the emotions are actually taking toll on
Yes.
the real stuff. So that's one part of the Gestalt approach, being able to read the room. There's this very simple model that has helped many in this kind of situation. It's an SOS model consisting of three elements existing in every single interaction: the self, other, and the situation.
Mm.
So, even with that simple model to facilitate the discussion, what is happening in me as an individual? And that's a question for everyone. How do I feel? What am I bringing
Right.
with me? What happens in me in this group? How is our connection impacting the
Mhm.
dynamics in this particular group, given the circumstances or the situation that we're in? Because oftentimes we don't take those into account. It's just like, but that might help, you know, put the things
Right.
into little boxes and to start working with that. Because at the
Right.
end of the day, the only element in the SOS model that we can actually impact is the self part.
Yeah.
And how easy it is to blame others and the situation and not taking responsibility. In
Right.
the Gestalt approach, the whole point of taking responsibility of me as an individual, being honest to what's going on in me, and that same applies to the emotional agency. To
Yeah.
understand that I am part of the system, I play a
Right.
role whether I like it or not. Even if I'm passive, I'm impacting others in this
Right.
situation.
Right.
So oftentimes that simple understanding of, oh, i am actually I am actually an active part of the system, this is what I need
Mhm.
to do, actually helps the situation.
Yes. It does. And I love that you brought up giving people a chance to not complain, but to verbalize and to share.
Mm,
I think that's very important. And again, you want to somewhat control it. They don't let it take up the whole day. It should be in a set setting so that people
Mm.
understand that that's what's going to happen. It should not be in a place where it's going to shock people, um, because that again creates counterproductive
Yeah.
interactions and feelings. Um, but we do need to be very aware, and I've done a lot of talks around neurodiversity and mental health, in which I talk a lot about my
Yeah.
journey. And for those that don't know, so one, I have several neurodiversity and mental health diagnoses. The two I talk about the most are obsessive compulsive disorder and bipolar. And the journey that I've been on to learn to take care of myself and all that, that does not involve medication, because I wanted to be able to really
Mm.
understand myself. And I'm not anti-medication. I want to put that out
Mm.
there. Um, it's it was very important to me to understand myself and to be able to understand everything I was feeling and interacting, so that I could tell my brain, no, I know what's actually going on. You can't trick me. These are the things that are happening right now. And I got to that point. And to have that level of intimacy with yourself, I can do the same thing now with other things. If, let's say, hypothetically, my husband says something and I immediately feel an upset response, I can stop and sit with that for a minute
Mm.
and analyze it and decide, was that a reasonable response? Is it unreasonable? What am I actually responding to? Is it actually what he said or did? Or is it this other thing that maybe that just reminded me of? And now I'm upset about that. And having that level of intimacy with yourself is a powerful thing. It's a strong thing. It makes you able to better deal with life, better able to manage the things that come your way. It even, believe it or not, those same skills, when I started having all my medical issues, helped me to be able to communicate to doctors what I needed.
Mm.
And so it's a very important intimacy with yourself, right? It's not just about other people, it's about an intimacy with
Mm.
yourself and really getting yourself. So, as we're wrapping up, I want to touch on that, the intimacy with
Mm.
ourselves, which you beautifully led into. Thank you. How does one start to obtain that level of intimacy with themselves where they can sit, acknowledge, name the feelings, name the responses, whether they're biologic or emotional, any of those things? Sometimes those things are intertwined. And then how do we start to learn to process that and then communicate that to others? Can you kind of walk us
Mm.
through that a little bit?
I was following you, and in the name of Gestalt, I was also reflecting back on what happens in me when you talk about your truly personal um, s- um, journey, and it was really touching to me. And I wanted to ask,
Thank you.
what happened in you when you shared that? Could we have a little experiment? I will go
Sure.
to back to your question, but what happened in you when you shared that kind of information about yourself? I know you talk about it, but still,
No,
it
you're
was touching
fine.
to me.
I don't mind that at all. So, looking at your face, I
Mm.
feel calm and I feel a sense of relief sharing that with you.
Mm.
In the moment where I realized that there are other people that are going to hear this, there was a moment of pull back, not safe. There was that warning in my brain that says not safe, do not proceed. And I stopped it and I said, no, this
Mm.
is it, because it's more important to me to share this type of information.
Mm.
So I did what I call resetting my priorities in my brain.
Yeah.
So nope, safety is okay. Don't worry, brain, I got you. We're moving forward because of this. And then a sense of pride in being
Yeah.
able to share this, because it took a long time and a lot of work. And even when I was good at it, being able to share it openly, and now with literally thousands of people, with all the speeches I give and everything, it's an empowering stance.
Wow. Imagine all that going on in your brain and being able to work with that. I know you're super self-aware, and thank you for sharing that, because this is
Sure.
I wanted to do this little experiment because a lot of I've read a lot and I've experienced a lot regarding a lot of the pain that people are going through in their lives right now. whether it's work related or life in general, as you touch base that. And I believe one of the sources for that pain is the lack of connection, a lack of
Mhm.
connection with yourself and an authentic connection with other human beings to
Yes.
reach out for the help. And I think that is something that I strongly recommend, to find someone in your life that you can call and say, you know what, I don't want your advice. I just want you to listen. I
Yeah.
want you to listen what I have on my plate without judgment. So
Right.
that's one. Have the guts, have the courage to reach out and
Mhm.
trust the people with their goodwill, because
Right.
that's how we create the authentic connection, which is so
Yes.
healing. The other part is, when we operate from autopilot, we're not self-aware.
Mhm.
So if we want to work with what's going on, unfortunately, we have to pull the brake and
Yeah.
face what's going on. Although oftentimes that's the most unpleasant thing to
It
start with,
is.
because it's easier to
It
blame
is.
the others and the situation, right? But
Mhm.
that's the thing. And really, to acknowledge, name, and accept that this is what's going on in me,
Mhm.
and it's okay.
Yes.
If it's hard to accept that, imagine if your best friend being there and saying that to you, it's okay. That's your true experience right now, and it's
Mhm.
okay. And then maybe if you can take a wider perspective, probably thousands, hundreds of thousands of people around the world are experiencing exactly the same. The human
Mhm.
connection. Build that in your mind, because we can, the mind is moldable.
And
And
use LinkedIn and other types of social media to find the people that are going through it too. Find the other people who share your experiences, good and bad, and reach out and don't wallow in it,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but use that to connect and to find people who are also finding ways to move forward and have healthy responses.
Yeah. And then ask the final question. So the third step, what is it that I need right now? The answer is not the thing, but the question itself. To bring your inner voice to the surface beyond, all these expectations and titles and work roles and stuff. What is it that I really want? And
Hmm.
maybe, what is it that you want to hear? What kind of support would you need to hear? And tell that to yourself.
Hmm. Absolutely. You know what? That's how we're going to end it. That's beautiful. There's no better way to end this life. So thank you, my
Thank
dear
you for
friend,
being
for
you.
for
I
once
so
again joining
appreciate
me.
this connection. Even though we're
Same.
physically far apart, I feel a
Very
really
far.
close connection to you.
Absolutely. I told people when I have two humans that you're one of them that are two of my favorite humans, and we're physically so very far apart, but it's just there's something about the connection
Yeah,
that we have. And so thank you again for joining me. Thank you everyone else for tuning in. If you want to connect with either of us, please do ask questions. We are both very open. Even if you disagree with us, reach out, talk about it. Let's
absolutely.
discuss
I
it.
like the
Let's discuss
challenge.
it. Yes, absolutely. I enjoy it. And then also tune in tomorrow. I have a wonderful show with another dear friend of mine tomorrow at 10 a.m. on my official show, Career Launch Live. Join us, talk about the broken hiring system and all we can do to fix it. Uh, and thank you again
Important
so
stuff.
very much. Connect with us both on LinkedIn and have a lovely day, everyone.